right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the second webinar in our deep dive series, Collaborating Through Review Management. Just a quick overview on our speakers for today. Bob Sabelson, our SVP of Sales and Marketing, will provide us with a quick introduction to Modern Requirements for DevOps, followed by Asif Sharif, our Chief Technologist, who will run through a detailed demo of review management. At the end, we'll leave about 15 minutes for Q&A. So on that note, if you do have any questions, please drop them into the question window on the right-hand side, and we'll try to cover them either during or at the end of the presentation. After the webinar, if you are interested in a free 30-day trial of Modern Requirements, please visit the link on the screen at modernrequirements.com/try-now. For those of you who don't know, we are on our second webinar of our deep dive series. The next webinar will be on the topic of working efficiently with supercharged diagramming. So after the webinar wraps, we'll send an email with the video recording and links to the upcoming webinar. So be sure to register if that topic is of interest to you. Due to the success of this webinar series, we will be continuing the series and we'll notify you by email once we've confirmed the webinar topics and dates. Just quickly before I pass it over to Bob, we have included a quick feedback survey which will appear once the webinar has ended, as well as in the follow-up email a few hours from now. Your feedback is extremely important to us and helps us improve these webinars for you going forward, so please be sure to fill those out. All right, over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Ambreen. And hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on Modern Requirements and set the stage for the demonstration of review management. We have been working with Microsoft for over 10 years now, and our solution is embedded into the Microsoft Azure DevOps platform in the cloud and on-premise. And today we work with many large, medium, and small-sized companies globally who rely on our review management module to support their review and approval process, and are comforted in the fact that it is FDA 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. The tool itself is browser-based, and Azure DevOps is the application server and database for Modern Requirements for DevOps. And it provides a single user interface in Azure DevOps to access all of the capabilities of Modern Requirements. So many clients today that we speak to review and approve their requirements using Word documents. While this approach is familiar and seemingly easy, it certainly has many shortcomings. The most prevalent one is the time that it takes to pursue people and encourage them to approve documents. And this ultimately causes product delays. Sound familiar? Modern Requirements for DevOps offers an automated solution for requirements management that's built right into Azure DevOps. It simplifies the entire review process while maintaining the familiar context of a document and provides the required audit trails that your quality management team requires for regulatory reporting. The new work reality that we're experiencing today really amplifies this need, as almost everyone is working remotely, and multiple emails containing multiple versions of documents just doesn't quite suffice. And virtual team meetings are certainly less effective for reviews and approvals today. So the review management module is one of the many capabilities within Modern Requirements for DevOps. And All of our modules come with a Discover panel that I'm showing on this slide. In case you haven't seen it, you can turn it on or off. And each of the capabilities within the tool has a link to help you to use the various functions within the tool. Now, review management is on the auditability layer of Modern Requirements for DevOps and comes with many other capabilities that are associated to it, like Smart Docs that we will touch on today and that we covered in our previous deep dive webinar. And there are other capabilities like visualizations and reuse that we will cover in later webinars. Because the tool offers capabilities and points of value to many different roles within your product lifecycle, not only requirements engineers can benefit from using the tool, but people like project managers, QA personnel, as well as designers and architects can all benefit from using the tool in the ways that are mentioned on this slide. That's the end of my introduction. I will turn this over now to Asif, and we have a few questions to ask you before we get into the demonstration.
Excellent, thank you, Bob. Hey, folks. So we've got a few polling questions. Now, a couple of the questions are the same as the last time, if you attended the first webinar. But please do answer these questions. And there are 4 different questions. So that's the first question. Are you currently using Modern Requirements? And it's a split. So half of these are current clients and the other half are new, thereabouts. The next question is, what type of process template do you use? So if you're using Modern Requirements, answer it as, I mean, within Modern Requirements, what process template you're using. If you're not using Modern Requirements, then give a generic answer as to how do you define requirements. Do you use user stories or product backlog items, or whatever the case may be? And in this time, we are seeing about half of the people use Agile or Scrum, and the other people are reasonably well distributed. The next one is, are you using Azure DevOps on-prem or cloud? So this is Azure DevOps Service or Server. And or of course, if you are not using ADO at all. So about 75%, 70% of the people are using Azure DevOps. Half of them are on the cloud. So that's useful to know. We've certainly seen a lot of traction in the cloud space. A lot of people have been moving to it. And then lastly, so if you're doing review and approval today of your requirements or other artifacts, are you using a document-based approach to doing that? Or are you using sort of a systems-based approach, I suppose would be the alternate. All right, so a lot of people are using a document-based approach. Excellent. So with that, what we'll do is that I'll start the demo and show you how review management works. Give me 1 second here, and I will share my screen with you. I'm not sure which screen you're seeing now here, actually. Hey, Bob or Ambi, can you tell me? Because it's not giving me an option to select the screen. It just does it. Can you tell me, are you seeing my backlog view, or are you seeing the desktop? That's really strange. Oh yeah, okay. Hopefully now you can see the backlog. I'm GoToWebinar challenged this morning. All right, so folks, so review management is part of Modern Requirements, and of course Modern Requirements does many things. So when you see everything on the left-hand side, from Smart Docs all the way to reporting, these are all part of Modern Requirements. Now, there is a dedicated review management area that we'll go to later on. But let's firstly see what are some of the places you can initiate the review from. So there are there's actually 5 different areas within Modern Requirements where you can initiate review. So one of the places to initiate review is from within your backlog. Okay, so you can go to your backlog, multi-select the work items you want to review, and then call upon review request. Okay. So that's one. The other place you can do this is in your sprint area or your iteration area, where again you have a list of work items and you can choose to get these reviewed. And the third place is from within queries. So if I had test cases and I wanted to get the test cases reviewed, then I could initiate that directly from here. Okay. So the backlog, the sprint, the query are 3 areas where you can initiate your review. But actually, let's go to the sprint area and we'll initiate a review from here. And then later on, we'll take a look at how you can initiate review from within a Smart Doc, as well as how you can do it from within the review module. So if I wanted to initiate a review from here, I could simply call upon review request, and we can then go ahead and initiate the review and get some feedback from people. So what we'll do here is that we'll invite Alice as the reviewer, and I'll invite myself and Jack will to be the approvers on this. Okay. And then I'll give it a name. Sprint 1, user story review, and then you can give it a bit of a description here. So you can do your any instructions you want to provide. You can add other work items to it if you want to, but these were already selected in the background, so they became part of the review. And then you can choose a due date for this. Now, it is important to note the due date is not mandatory anymore. It used to be before, but some of our clients came back and they said, you know what, we don't want to give a due date. We'll leave it open-ended. We want to have that option. So you have that option now. And then you've got 3 checkboxes here. So the first checkbox is to say that I want all the requirements in here approved at once or not. Okay. So if I want everything approved or not, so if it's just a binary choice for all the work items put together, then you would say that you want to review it as a package. If you don't check this, then it means it can be approved individually. The other is you can request e-signature, and this is the Part 11 compliance thing where you can request that you want the user to provide re-authenticate themselves. So this will require them to re-authenticate. And of course, if you need e-signature, then check this. If you just do it needlessly, where you don't really have a need for it, users will complain about it because they have to re-authenticate every time they approve a work item, right? So do it when you need it. If it's optional, then perhaps you want to leave it out, but that's up to you. And then there's also something we've added recently in MR 2020 for auto close. So typically the review automatically closes on certain triggers, such as the due date has expired. Or everybody has responded to it. So what we're doing here is some of our clients told us that they don't want it auto-closed because what they like to do is they'll actually review the entire feedback and they'll work through it and collaborate on things before they explicitly decide to close it. So now you have an option to not have an auto close, but rather manual close. So this would be manual close. Of course, with the checkbox, it is auto close. What you can also do is you can say that all the work items I have in here should be in a given state. So if I say it should be active, it'll remove all the work items that are not in active state. Of course, you don't have to choose this. You can just leave select. That means whatever you have is fine. And you can also say that once I've approved these things, change the state of these work items to active, okay, or approved, or whatever states you have in your project. And you can also choose when does the state change. So you have 2 choices. One choice is that once a work item is approved, its state will immediately change. Of course, approved by, in this case, both the approvers, in general, all the approvers. The other option is only change the state of the work items once all the work items have been approved. So you don't want to change transition, you don't want to change the state to approved until everything is approved by all the approvers. That simply implies that there's a lot of dependency that you don't want to transition the states unless all of these do get approved. Okay, so those are different options. All right. Now, if you keep this checked on, open review details. As soon as you send it, it will open up the review in a different tab. All right. So Let's initiate this review, and we'll firstly take a look at what is the reviewer experience for Alice. So now we'll do a preview, and you'll see that Alice and myself and Jack are copied in this email. There's some details that they'll get, and then I wrote my purpose to be whatever, and here's a hyperlink. And they'll click on the hyperlink, and they'll be taken to for the review management. Now, you could come here and make edits. So you can update the message here, and then you can send this email. Okay. So the request goes out. Alice will get that request, and then Alice will click on the hyperlink in the email. Okay. So you can see this opened up a different tab, and the review is the review I just sent. Spring, I meant sprint. Okay. So it's springtime anyway, so we'll go with spring. Well, it ought to be. In Toronto, it isn't quite springish today, but it is sunny, so we'll take that. And so we have that review, and these are the work items in the review. Now let's see from Alice's point of view. Yeah, this is Alice's point of view. So I just opened this up in incognito mode, so I can have two different users on two different browser screens. So you can see Alice has this review. Okay. So that's an active review. Alice also, I sent Alice another approval request. So she was working on that as well, but this is a review. So, and you'll see shortly the difference between a review and a approval. So in here, there are two ways to do this. One is that Alice can go and she can say, okay, you know what, I'm going to click on this window and look at the details. Actually, what she might do is she might click on open work item and look at the detailed work item window, because she may want to see a lot of other information. So she'll go and she'll review this, and then she can comment or submit review. And I'll show you what that is shortly. Now, so likewise, you can just click on these things and drill down and take a look at what's in there. However, although this was not a smart doc we initiated from, so this was done from the sprint view, I can go to the smart doc view. And what smart doc view will do is show us the description along with the title. And you will see when I actually bring up a smart doc itself, then you can see many more fields. So you can configure the smart doc template, and that gets rendered over here. So now Alice can still open up the work item and see other information like acceptance criteria or whatever else. And then she can go and say, what about this? Okay, so there's a conversation that is starting now. And in this view, we will see that Alice said something, and I can say, good point, and the conversation continues. Okay. So now what happens is, so we'll continue with the conversation here. So that's just adding a comment. So all the participants, both reviewers and approvers, can submit comments, and everybody will see these comments, everybody who's part of the review. So the idea over here simply was that we wanted to make sure that there's a collaborative sort of environment where people can see each other's comments and react to it. But Alice can also submit more of a formal review. So Alice could come and say, I really think it should be using Active Directory, not custom user management. Okay, but this time I'll submit this as a review. Okay, so when something is submitted as a review, let's go back to as myself. I can see Alice submitted this review. So I can go ahead here and I can say, you know what, that actually is a good point. Or I'll deal with it later. Or maybe, no. It needs to be custom user management because of whatever reason. Okay. So at this point, what I might do is I might say, okay, I accept your point here. And I'm going to go and say, yeah, I forgot, but I will add a new rec for this. So I'll add a comment in there, and directly right below it, I'll actually go and add a new work item. So I'll go ahead and create a new user story that says use AD, okay, or whatever you want to, however that's going to get called. So now I've created a new work item based on our conversation. So the point of a comment simply was it's going back and forth and we are sharing ideas. But when you do submit a review action, then that becomes much more actionable. And of course now I've created this requirement thanks to her challenge. And likewise, you could get other people to submit their reviews, and then we'll end up with a whole bunch of conversation and action items and so on, which then facilitates the updating of the work items, and so we can get things completed so that we can then perhaps resend it for sign off with the new requirement. So that's when Alice submitted her review, and Alice can see what I've said and what I've done with her points. Okay. And you can see here there's an icon here. There's this little icon here. It simply means that there's been a review has been submitted against that particular work item. Now, Alice can also go and see that that not a lot of progress has been made. So Alice hasn't completed the review, and Asif and Jack haven't done the approval yet. So she can see the basic information, but she can't change the due date or cancel it or close it or resend a reminder. These are all done by the initiator. So Alice, who's just a participant, can view what the review looked like and what progress has been made, but she can't change it. One other thing that you can do here is if you wanted to provide comments. So you see, if I'm providing comments against any of these work items, then the comment is simply against that work item, right? So I'm saying for this user story, this is what I have to say. Now, but what if I want to say something which is broader? It is not to do with these requirements or test cases or whatever it is that we are reviewing, but you do want to do it against the whole review. For that, you simply go to the details tab and you'll say, but you forgot this and that. So this becomes sort of an overall feedback. If I'm done, so there are some work items here that I haven't provided feedback on, but let's say I've reviewed it and they're all fine. how do I say I'm fine with it? How do I say, because there's no approval or rejection, I'm adding comments or submitting review. So what you can do is you can just say review completed. And so now this becomes one of my reviews that I've completed. So review completed is simply a shortcut to say that the review is now done. Okay, so I may not add more comments, but I've added comments where it was appropriate, and now we are done. I'm done with the review. So that's the life cycle of from a reviewer's point of view. So again, the review is going, and by the way, you can click on any review in the past that might be completed or closed, and you can see what happened. Now you can't add additional data to it or change things in it, but you can still view it. Okay. All right. So now let's take a different approach. Let's go back to here. And what we'll do here is we will go to Smart Docs. So we'll go to Smart Docs, and we'll initiate an approval from there, and we'll see the approval lifecycle from there. So we go to Smart Docs, and in here, what we'll do is we'll take my BRD, which, and I did the last webinar on Smart Docs, but we didn't get into review management of it. So let's say that I have a document, I'm reasonably happy. Maybe the first time I did the review, I only invited stakeholders as reviewers, got their feedback, updated the document, and now I'm ready to approve it. So for approval, I'm going to invite Jack. I'm going to invite Alice. Whoops. And perhaps myself. So us three will be the approvers, and because we've already done the review, I'm just going to do, in this particular case, the scenario I'm describing here is we'll do first pass review, second pass approval. Okay. And then we'll give it a name. BRD review 2 for approval. Let's say that, and then again, you have a purpose, and again, the same fields you have access to again. Okay. So I will choose a due date, and we'll leave all of this alone. And certainly when it comes to approving as package in the document format, again, it means you approve the entire document or nothing. And so we can preview this. And again, Jack, Alice, and I are getting this email. I can make certain updates to this if I want to. And when folks get it, they'll click on Start Your Review Session. And so we'll initiate this review. So when you initiate it, again, it'll open up the review for me. On this side, again, you can see things in the list view, but of course, in this case, I'm most interested in the Smart Doc view. And then let's go on here, and we can see we now have another review, which is for approval. Okay, so this is active, so let's go in there. And this is the document that needs to be reviewed or approved. So again, I'm logged in as Alice, and in this case, Alice is the approver. So how are things different in here? Firstly, you will see that if you have in your Smart Doc, if you have enabled multiple fields other than just description, then in the review, you will see those multiple fields. As opposed to when we created the review from the backlog or the sprint or the query, then in the Smart Doc view, it only shows you the title and the description. And you always do have to go and open up the work item detail window to see the rest of it. But if you initiate it from a Smart Doc, then the Smart Doc meta template will be used to render the review content in here. And so you can go and you can say, the title looks pretty good to me. I will approve it. You'll see a check mark appear there. You'll come to this one and you will say that, well, perhaps I told you something before. But what I told you before, I don't know if you made the change here because I have to then find exactly what the change would be. So as the approver, I can now compare it to the previous version of the Smart Doc. Okay. And now I can see you change the document to a specification, and yeah, that's what I had asked you to do. And I can say, yeah, you know, this looks pretty good, or maybe I'll say it should be green. And I will reject this. When in here, when we are when we go to let me just see here. So yeah, this got rejected. It said it should be green. So now as the initiator, I could go and say, no, I disagree with that. We agreed on Tuesday that it should be white. Okay. And then we are having a conversation on this thread. Alice, on the other hand, might determine that based on your feedback, which actually is true, we did have that conversation on Tuesday. I might then go and say, you know, you're right. I should approve it. So I'll say, yeah, good memory. And I will approve it. Okay. So the point is that I can change my mind as long as the review is still open. Okay. So I can change my mind as long as the review is still open. Now, what happens is, if you look at this work item that got accepted, if I open up the work item detail window, you will note that I actually added this comment here. You can see that I actually rejected it and then I approved it. So every time you submit a review or approve it or reject it, some of those key actions are logged within the work item history, if you will, or the comments area. So even if you opened up this work item directly from the backlog, you'd still see that, yeah, you know what, this work item was approved as part of this review. And by who and when and what did they say? And if it's e-signature, then it'll have the appropriate labeling that this was with e-signature. And so on. The one other thing to note is that I could, now of course I can see that this work item was removed from the Smart Doc, but let's go to this work item. And so this work item is 2883. And let's say you wanted to know which reviews is 2883 part of. So for that, you go to 883. Let's say you get to this detail window from wherever, right? So you can search it, go through the query or backlog or wherever. If you want to see where it's been used, select the linked artifact window. And in here, you can see this particular work item are part of 3 different reviews and 1 smart doc. So you can always click on any one of these and navigate to that particular review or to that particular smart doc. So if you ever want to see what things are like that, then linked artifacts is very useful to know where things are used or work items are used within. I think this shows you for reviews, smart docs, and baselines. And we are adding diagramming mockup use case and a couple of other things to this as well. The one other thing that you can do is you can generate an audit report. So this audit report, we worked with some of our medical device companies to actually create an audit report that could be used for with FDA or with the internal audits. So this type of reports are very useful if you are into manufacturing industry of different sorts. And there are 2 different audit reports. This is the approval audit report, and there's a review audit report if there are any reviewers in that review. And there's a legacy one, which was our original one, but that has data for both of these. But now we've created them more specialized with more detail so that you have access to that. Now, if you are in the review process, and let's say, of course, this is an approver, if you wanted to go and you wanted to say, no, you know what, I'm going to approve the whole document, then just click on this thing to approve all. And this will approve all the work items in this document. Right? And if this was e-signature enabled, so you said you want e-signature on approval or rejections, then this would then give you a pop-up window to re-authenticate. And likewise, you can reject all. So you can reject or reject all. Okay. If you do reject, then you do have to enter a comment. Now, as before, under the Details tab, you can see that Alice has been doing stuff. Jack and Asif are not active in this review currently. And there are no reviewers in here as well. So if you did want to change your review, you can change your due date, you can cancel it, you can close it, you can resend the reminder, and so on. And the reminder can also be automated. So you can say, hey, you know what, I want to automatically have certain reminders sent. And for that thing, what you would have to do is go to the admin area and do it. So I'll show you that in just shortly. If you do cancel the review, then the review would be, it's like a delete. You want to get rid of the review. Close simply marks it as closed so that nobody can then add more to it. Okay. So no more feedback can be provided if you close it. Cancel does delete it. So that is that. What else you can do? Yeah, some of the time what people do is they'll do a review, and once everything is approved by all the stakeholders, they'll go and create a baseline. So they'll create a baseline of the reviewed work item, or they'll create a version of the smart doc if it is from a smart doc. But imagine this was just a bunch of requirements and test cases for iteration 1, which were perhaps in multiple Smart Docs or even work items that are not in Smart Docs, and I approved it, then you can go create a baseline, and all of those work items will be baselined quickly. Okay. Yeah, so that's that. Of course, we talked about compare view, and that obviously makes it much easier. The one thing that I will mention is that the advantage of redlining is that when you go to the work item history, you can see the changes, right? So you can see something changed. And if something changed, what changed? And it's hard to tell what changed. And in fact, you have to add up the changes in your mind to know the delta. But in this case, you can see the redlining directly there, so you know exactly what changed. Right? So that's a useful thing too. It makes it easier to use the system. Okay, so let me talk about a few configuration things. So under the account setting, not here, let me go in from here. So obviously you need the right privileges to do certain things. So oh, this is the wrong user. Okay. So so let me describe to you what you can do. So one of the things you can do is when you initiate a review, there are a few things you can actually configure. Okay. So one of the things you can configure is you can configure your, no, I don't want that. Oh, it's my login still a problem here. Okay, let's see. Okay, fine. It's re-authenticated. I'm good. I think last time I didn't complete the review process or the login process. So what can be configured here? So one of the things that you can configure is what do you want the default due date to be? So you could set a default due date to be today plus 5 days or X number of days. So you can set up default dates in the admin. You can also say that do you want certain defaults for these checkboxes? So you could say that, you know what, every time I do my review, it needs to have an e-signature. And if it needs an e-signature, always have this checked and don't even show me the field. So that every time it's just given that it's going to require e-signature. So you can hide and show fields, you can set the defaults, as well as you can set up a reminder so that you can say, hey, before the review is finished, maybe 2 days before it, send people a reminder that it needs to be reviewed. So that is, those are some of the things you can configure in the admin area, and then every review you create will have those defaults applied to it. But of course, if you want full flexibility all the time, then enable everything, and then people can select it themselves when they start the review. All right. So that's review management. So we'll look at what questions we have, and then we'll answer those.
Okay, we've got a number of questions which are really appreciated. The first one is Amy asks, what triggers the review being completed? And there is a review complete button. Any other comments to that?
Yeah. So if in here, if Alice goes and marks it as complete, and so there's two things I can trigger. Is so all the reviewers have marked it as complete, or the date has expired. So that once the date has expired, it'll auto close. So those are the two triggers.
There's another question. Could you spend some more time showing how to add review actions?
Sure. So the idea is that if I go to, so again, I'm here as Alice, and I go here and I say, you know what, I've got this this user management feature. I say this should use REST API, and I reject it. Then in the initiator view, I can go here and I can say, let's go here. And what I can do is I can go ahead and I can say, do I accept your conclusion here? So you decided to reject it because we should use the REST API. I can either accept your conclusion, or I can mark it as an observation. That means I'll deal with it at some point in time, and maybe. By the way, these values are configurable through the admin as well. So you can actually choose to have different verbiage. So if observation is not relevant for you, then don't have it there. And if observation is there, then different organizations might have different semantic associated to it. What does it mean? Well, it's really up to you, right? But to me, it more sounds like it's, I'll mark it as observation. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with you, but that's something I need to analyze at some point in time. Or I could reject your rejection and say, I disagree with you, and then deal with it. Of course, at the same time, I can add my own comments here and say, our standard is to use AD, and that's it. And then in turn, I could come here and maybe create a new issue or an impediment that says that REST for blah, blah, blah should be considered. Okay. So I've created an issue that we'll deal with later on, especially if you'd marked it as observation. I might create an issue that can be managed more deliberately. So that's really what the action, but I think it's important to remember that these values are configurable. So if certain things don't make sense, then change it. Or if it still makes sense, but you want to have a different verbiage, then change the labeling on it.
Next question is, are emails triggered when a comment is created? How is Alice notified there is a response to her comment?
Right. So on various events, emails are triggered. And again, under admin, there are several types of email alerts you can enable. So if I reject a work item, I want to make sure the initiator knows about it. And there are some on comments as well. So again, under the admin of review, you can actually do that. Set up which alerts you want to get.
Okay, thank you. Next question, what shows up in an audit report?
So an audit report is a reasonably mechanical document in which in which you can see. I'll bring it up here and show it to you. All right. So in an audit report, obviously it has the basic information on the review, if the review was created from a review, because sometimes what you can do is you can create one review for feedback and another one for approval. Then you'll know the source review as well as the current review you're looking at. And then for every work item that is being reviewed, it'll give you some information on the work item. So it's got so this is user management. It's a feature. This is the work item ID. It's revision 2. This is area path iteration path who is assigned to. You can see that I rejected it so Alice rejected it rather with this comment, right? And then there was another comment against it, and that rejection was rejected, and an issue was created against it. So basically, everything we did is actually logged in the audit report. And the reviewer audit report is similar, but of course, certain things don't apply to it. So it's a more streamlined version of this.
Great, thank you. Next question, is the review configuration done at the client level or at the project level?
So the review configuration is actually done at the account level or the collection level. So if you're using Azure DevOps Service, like most of you do, then it is done at the account level. If you're using this thing as a on-prem, then you do it at a collection level. So you just do it once and it applies to all your projects.
Thank you. The next question is, if there are more than one approver's reviewers and one of them closes a review, can the second reviewer still perform his or her review?
So if somebody marks it as complete, so if you mark it as complete and you have another person who can in turn is also a reviewer, they can provide reviews. However, if you close the review entirely, then the review is closed entirely. It's not that you are done. You are saying we are done. This review is complete now. We are not getting any more feedback. So don't close it if you want others to continue to provide feedback.
Thank you. Next question, what controls the Smart Doc view when initiated from a sprint or a backlog view? How is a Smart Doc template linked to the review?
Right. So it's not based on a meta template. So when we were looking at what was this one, right? So when we looked at this was initiated from the backlog or the sprint view. So it was just a list of work items. There is no Smart Doc like structure there. But when you do switch here, the only logic that we have applied here is to show the description field automatically. So it's sort of considered as like a default Smart Doc view where you see title and description. And so it just shows you title and description. But of course, if you did want to show many more properties, I would then suggest you go to Smart Doc, drag and drop those work items in it into a template where you've already configured what fields you want to show, and then initiate that as a Smart Doc.
Okay, thank you. The next question is there a way to pull all comments from a review?
Yeah, that's through the audit report, the one we just saw. And again, just do experiment with take a look at the legacy report as well and see which one, especially for this particular use case, which one is best. But certainly these two are the new ones. We call it legacy because it's old format now.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, if a deadline has passed, will the review close, or will the system trigger notification that the deadline has passed or the due date has passed?
Yeah, so there's a few variations to the answer there. One is that if you have enabled auto close, then when the due date passes, it will automatically close it, thus auto close. And if auto close is not enabled, then you'll have to go and explicitly close it when needed. So in this review, I did close it explicitly, so it is closed. From a reminder point of view, again, you can initiate a reminder either explicitly and say, hey, send people a reminder, they're being lazy or whatever the case may be, or you can set up in the admin area a X number of days before the due date, send a reminder automatically. So you don't have to do it explicitly, but you'll still have the option to do it explicitly as well.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how do people participate in a review?
So to participate in a review, you have to be invited to that review. So if you're invited to it, then you will see the review show up on your left-hand panel. So you can see which are your active reviews, what are closed reviews, where are you involved as an approver, or whatever the case may be. Right? So it has to be, you have to be invited to it. However, recently in Modern Requirements 2020, we added a feature, and what that allows you to do is to say, should people who are not part of a review be able to view the review? Okay. So if you are not part of a review and you go to a particular work item, and say from the backlog view, and then you initiate your linked artifact window, and you can see that this work item is in this review, but you're not part of the review. Okay. So should you be able to see it if you click on it? Or should it give you a message you're not part of it, so can't show you this review? So there's actually a configuration now available, again at the account level or the collection level, where you can say that allow people who are not part of the review to be able to at least view it as read-only users. So that's a new function we have provided with our latest release.
Last question so far is, do you have any document that describes the FDA Part 11 compliance that you referred to earlier? And I'll take that one and say, yes, we do have a document that describes that. And if you would like a copy, please just email us at info@modernrequirements.com, and we'd be happy to send you a copy of that. There is one last request to show how the baseline features works. And I'm not sure whether that's going to be a topic on another webinar. I know that we're 5 minutes past the hour.
Yeah, so Bob, we are going to have a webinar on both building out enterprise libraries for reuse and also baseline management. So that will be part of our second leg of this deep dive series. However, just as a quick reminder, under our help center, we have continued to add various content. So if you do want to look at things like baselining, either you can find it through this bootcamp topic 2. You can also find that under tutorial, under here. And as we are doing our webinars, our deep dive webinars are also going to get listed here. So if you missed the Smart Doc one a couple of weeks ago, then you can get access to it here, and so on. So for now, if you want to, please do take a look at the baselining tutorial. These are slightly longer, they're about 10 minutes long, whereas the bootcamp videos are shorter, right? So yeah, but we will have a more detailed deep dive for baselining.
And there was one last question that I had missed. I'm sorry about that. The question is, when would you create a baseline for a Smart Doc versus a version?
Yeah, so for a Smart Doc, you'll almost never create a baseline. A version in Smart Doc is a baseline, so it's better to create a version than a baseline. We had actually supported baselining first, and then we came up with the version management on it, but some people were already using it, so we have left it there for now, but this button should be deprecated in the next release or 2. So you definitely want to use versioning because it does show you much better visualization, such as when you do comparison to things, and you can generate redline documents and be able to roll back or clone a version of a document, and so on. So versioning is what you want to use in Smart Doc. The one exception would be that, let's say you had 3 Smart Docs and you wanted to create a single baseline of it. You didn't want to create 3 different versions of each Smart Doc, but you just wanted a collection of work items that may have spanned multiple Smart Docs, or even work items that are not in there. Then you would create a baseline for release 1 and include all of those requirements and other information into that baseline. So that would be sort of an exception, but from a purely Smart Doc point of view, there isn't any real use case, I think, to create a baseline from here. I think you'd use versioning, which is much more elegant.
Okay, thank you. I think we've answered all of the questions. We really appreciate all of the interaction that everyone has provided, and we appreciate all of your attendance today. Asif, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, just one last thing. So in the survey that you will be getting shortly, we are asking, are there certain topics you want us to cover? Or if there are particular scenarios you want to write to us about, then maybe we can just do a Q&A type of webinar where we are taking different scenarios and working through how those things would work. So please feel free to share those ideas with us, and we'll be sure to answer those things in a subsequent deep dive session. Thank you all. Stay safe, and we'll speak soon.